Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Jedi In Exile. In today's video we're going to be talking about the new documentary that's come on. Disney have done quite a lot now with their recent series. They do a kind of documentary that looks back with the actors, the directors, producers, everybody at how they've made, I suppose it's a behind the scenes, isn't it, of the series. So this one we're focusing on is the recently released Kenobi one. So Matthew, talk me through your thoughts of this documentary. It was an hour long, so we got quite a lot of content. What were your thoughts?
Well, let's just start with, obviously it was called Kenobi, A Jedi's Return, but actually it was the return of two men that we absolutely love. Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. Do you know what? Like we were chatting about this just before we started recording briefly, and I kind of said there's not tons to actually digest from like when we watch series and all of that kind of stuff, and we do like a full on review of what we thought and where we think things are gonna go and all of that kind of stuff. This was something where I sat down and in my head, we had already decided we were going to do a video on this, and in my head I didn't sit there going, right, I need to be paying attention to this and maybe like jotting down some talking points and all of that kind of stuff. I just sat and enjoyed it for an hour.
Yeah, it was an easy watch, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was so incredible. We've talked about the fact that we feel so kind of sorry for Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen for how the prequels were received when they were released and the kind of backlash, I guess, that they got from fans. And it was so incredible to see them back, so passionate about a project, doing what they clearly loved, and nice for them to finally see, like, Ewan McGregor's talking about it. It doesn't address it directly, right? But he did in some of the kind of press building up to the series, but it doesn't address it directly, but it goes completely without saying that there is this absolute sense of I want to say relief, but also pride in the fact that those fans that were there all that time ago kind of saying how horrendous the prequels were, how poor the writing was, how bad the acting was, all seem to have faded into the background, and actually there's this renewed call for these guys to come back and do this content, and they clearly have loved every second of it.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, there was a couple of things I took from it. The first is that it was filmed in like 2020, which I kind of knew anyway, but there was so much more focus on it of like how long it takes to actually, like the post-production of a lot of this. And then the second thing, which probably was the biggest strike for me, is that when you play, I think when you're an actor in a big franchise like Star Wars, you know, known around the world and loved by millions. Ewan McGregor said he hadn't played Obi-Wan in 17 years, so from 2020 they finished filming Revenge of the Sith in 2003, and as we know that's released in 2005. But he said as soon as he put the robe on, that was like he felt like he was back. He was Obi-Wan again, and I think it's just amazing that actors and actresses, you know, he spent 17 years between being Obi-Wan in 2003 to 2020, and you've been Obi-Wan for probably 5 years of his life. He was constantly filming, you know, Star Wars films, from Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones to then Revenge of the Sith, and like he says, he's those films that they were made for, the kids back in, you know, the early 2000s, that they're now adults, so they're the ones who are now going to be enjoying the Kenobi series. And obviously the whole bromance that he's got with Hayden Christensen,
it's unreal.
He didn't even need to be at Hayden Christensen's first scene, which is obviously over the hills, isn't it? When Obi-Wan's with Leia, and he sees Anakin, like as Anakin Skywalker, and Hayden's like shouting Obi-Wan, like it's
waves to him.
Yeah, I think it's what every fan loves, because we clearly know about Hayden Christensen. He's not really known for anything. He's somebody who has been typecast, and because of the hate he's received, I think that's impacted his career.
Oh, massively.
Obviously, the reviews of the early Star Wars films that he's in weren't great, and so I think, you know, he basically became a farmer in Canada, didn't he, back home, and kind of put acting to one side. He's done a few independent films and bits and pieces, but it was so nice to see him come back, and it's so nice to see him appreciated now. And I think the documentary just showed that a bit more, of like that the actors were willing to talk about that kind of dark side of being in Star Wars, and all the critique they got. But no, it was a real wholesome documentary, I felt.
It was also great that it didn't just focus on this series, that it focused on other aspects.
That.
Yeah, there was Ewan McGregor sat and talked about when he was cast as Obi-Wan, and talked about the fact that he went back and watched movies that Alec Guinness had done as a young man to kind of try and get a sense of how to behave as a younger version of Obi-Wan, which sounds insane, but when you actually think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Because Alec Guinness embodied the character and was
absolutely.
the character.
And he talks about the actress, and I don't know her name, but the actress who plays young Princess Leia. He says like what I did in Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith is what she's now doing in the Kenobi series, and that must be quite difficult in one way, because I feel like Ewan McGregor actually nails it in Kenobi. He's got the mannerisms, I think, of Alec Guinness, and the slowness that Alec Guinness talks as Obi-Wan in A New Hope. I feel like he really nails that.
Yeah, we pointed out in some of our reviews, like I think it was one of the things where there's even the point where Alec Guinness does the thing where he kind of like touches his face while he's thinking about stuff,
strokes it,
and that's exactly what Ewan McGregor did in the series. So there's no doubt in my mind, kind of, we knew that he did that, but it's just nice to see that kind of actually thrown out there. It's interesting to get Deborah Chow's kind of take on everything, and the fact that we've kind of talked about this new wave of directors coming through that have been entrusted with this franchise.
From the Filoni school of Star Wars.
Yeah, and she kind of talks about the fact that she kind of says, like, George was involved, and I understood what George was doing when he did Star Wars, but I also needed to put my own spin on it. But it's really great to see that she's put her own spin on it without going, I need to make something completely different to make it clear that this is me and not somebody else. Yeah. That there's respect for what already exists, but also just kind of taken to another level. So I thought that was incredible. Massively rate Deborah Chow.
That's the kind of pull that Star Wars has, that even someone like a big actor like Liam Neeson probably wouldn't want to do one scene in a Disney series, but the fact that he gets to come back and play Qui-Gon
Jinn, yeah.
Like, people just love reprising these characters.
What, 10 seconds of screen time?
Exactly, and Liam Neeson says, even in Phantom Menace, he says he absolutely loved playing Qui-Gon. It's one of his favourite roles of all time, like being in the Star Wars universe. And actually we know that from the extended universe of Star Wars, how big a character Qui-Gon is in the whole, saga, how instrumental he is. So it was nice to, see him interviewed on there, and was like, I was chomping at the bit to come back, So, yeah, it was just, like I say, the word I would use for it all, it was just very wholesome.
Yeah,
it was like old friends getting back together. It was like my childhood, seeing all these people again. And
it was
like, we're back.
Was great to see some of the behind the scenes stuff as well. We got a really good look at the technology. I forget what it's called. The technology that they use with the digital screen to create.
It's brilliant.
Sets.
It's amazing.
Even to the point.
Even on the ceiling.
Well, there was a point where they showed a bit where Reva and the Inquisitors, when they were at Palace Inquisitorius, and they showed that the camera was panning back, and obviously the screens need to react to the fact that the camera is panning back, and so the screens change to create the aspect that the camera is seeing with the background. Like, the level of technology to do it is...
I found that amazing, because they just had the table where the Inquisitors were talking, where Reva gets like choked by Vader, and they literally had like a white screen, didn't they? And then it just blended in, and you feel like you're underwater.
Yeah, all of a sudden it felt like it was there.
It's phenomenal. The technology is amazing, and that must save, although Disney obviously have the initial outlay, that must save millions in like finding a location setting it all up, like all that logistical side of things are like completely taken out.
But also amazing to see that they did also do on location shoots, because in the prequels were heavily kind of criticised for
really blue screened.
So it's great to see, and I actually don't think that there was ever a point where I was like, Obi-Wan's running, like there was scenes that were shot in the desert that were shot in that studio, and I don't think I was ever like, he's running in a studio with a screen behind him. So that was great. And my final kind of piece on it before I'm happy for us to wrap up is the fact that we got to see that it was such a mad reaction to Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor at Celebration this year. We obviously weren't there, but seeing all of the stuff go out online about them being there, the fact that they premiered the first episode at Celebration exclusively, and how nuts fans went for them actually being there, and for the series coming out and for them being back. It was amazing that they addressed that. It was like a secret. Some people potentially didn't see it. It's like a secret post-credits, like 2.5 minutes maybe of footage that they put in after the initial credits of the documentary. And Ewan McGregor said, he's like, I've never been to a Celebration before. This is my first time being at a Star Wars Celebration, and the reaction that they got was incredible. There were people tearing up in the room when they came out on stage. It must be such an incredible feeling to have sat for 17 years with people criticising and knocking you down for something that they probably felt really proud of doing at the time. To now have come full circle, and finally just having that validation from fans to say, do you know what, we see you and we appreciate you.
I love it, and I loved it when they were watching the big screen, where they obviously had Ewan McGregor, and then Hayden came in. I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm just watching old clips on the big screen, and they're like showing the clip where Anakin, you underestimate my power, don't try it, wallops the legs and arm off. And Hayden's like, you've got the high ground. And it's like, if I had $1 for every time someone told me I had the high ground, like, Ewan, stop it. But it really was phenomenal. It was a great documentary.
Wholesome is the perfect word to sum it up, and just for me gave me even more appreciation, which I didn't think was possible, for the two guys that were pivotal in creating the trilogy that was so kind of instrumental on my further development of Star Wars series. Just give us more prequels. Give us more prequel content.
We need that period. I wonder, and I feel like you can't really do it because of, you can do, but the de-aging technology would probably have to be used constantly. I really want to see that period between episode 1 and episode 2, but I know it's not as appealing as the period. But I loved the clip in the Kenobi series of Anakin
them fighting in the temple.
It was just so brilliant, so clever as well in that episode. Obviously to show like how Obi-Wan knew how Vader would think. But it was absolutely brilliant. If we were going to rate it, it would be a 10. So it's as simple as that. I can speak for both of us.
There's no point rating it. There's no point rating it.
So I hope everybody has liked it. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of the documentary. We're always happy to hear everybody's thoughts. As Matt said at the start of the video, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. All the support that we get from everybody is very much appreciated. It does keep us going. Every like, every comment, every subscription. So please do continue. And the last thing for us to say, Matthew, is we'll see you in the next video. And may the Force be with you all.